A DOJ lawyer says he was fired for refusing to lie to a court, and the response from the Attorney General is raising serious questions.
Madam Attorney General, yesterday, Erez Ruveni filed a whistleblower complaint against the Department of Justice. As I think you know, he was a 15-year veteran of the Department of Justice. He received commendations during the first Trump administration for all his work at DOJ, but he filed a detailed account of his recent experience at the Department of Justice, saying that prior to his determination, that he was terminated after he refused to sign an appeal brief that was unsupported by evidence or the law. And he says, "I didn't sign up to lie." In response to his termination, you made a statement on Fox News a little while ago saying, "At my direction, every Department of Justice attorney is required to zealously advocate on behalf of the United States, and that any attorney who fails to abide by this direction will face consequences." So, General Bondi, I guess the direct question is, he says he was fired because he didn't want to make an untruthful statement to a court of law. I have two questions. Number one, I assume you agree that zealous advocacy does not mean telling untruths to courts of law. And second, if that's not the case, what did you mean by saying he was not a zealous advocate?
Senator Van Hollen, this is all pending litigation, as you're well aware, and the timing of it, I can't discuss pending litigation. This is a whistleblower lawsuit pending within my office, but I will say the timing of it I find suspect, as he takes hits at Emil Bovee, who is one of the best human beings I know, one of the smartest, brilliant men I know, who will soon become a federal judge. And his hearing happens to be today, and I find the irony of the timing of it pretty remarkable, the lawsuit. But this had to do with attorney-client privilege information that was disclosed. I can't talk about the substance, but what I will tell you, and you have obviously my word, any zealous advocacy means to be done ethically and honestly, always. And that's what I mean by zealous advocacy. He also accused Emil Bovee of things that Todd Blanche, who is one of the best human beings I also know, my deputy attorney general, was in the room and said did not happen. But again, I wish I could get into greater detail. I can't because it's pending, but I stand by Emil Bovee and I stand by Todd Blanche every day, and I always will.
Well, Madam Attorney General, I will say that his account seems to have lots of information. So as you say, this will obviously be something that's litigated or reviewed through due process procedures. But I have to say that it's very, very disturbing. We've also heard from others in other departments who are responsible for implementing the laws of the United States that they feel uncomfortable about having been asked to do things that they thought were unethical. Let me go on to some of the budget questions, and I really want to follow up on my colleagues, Senator Moran and Senator Collins. But the DOJ grant funding is being sort of cut back on two fronts. One, in April, the department terminated hundreds of grant awards, notifying grantees that their current grant funds were gone, effective immediately. That included, law enforcement training grants, technical assistance awards, some dating back to fiscal year, I think, 2017. So, question number one is, are you going to be releasing those funds? The second concern regarding grants has to do with the monies that were appropriated in this fiscal year, in March. And my understanding is that DOJ is withholding an overwhelming number of notices of funding opportunities, NOFOs, meaning that grantees who rely on these grants, including many who provide services to victims of crimes, are literally, in some cases, running out of money. For example, the department's biggest grant-making component, the Office of Justice Programs, has only posted one notice for fiscal year 25, NOFO notice. So if you could answer the question with respect to both those pieces.
Sure, and that's a very valid question, Senator. The notices will be going out in coming weeks about the grants. And we did cut grants by 6%, and I'm here to tell every senator, if we did cut a grant that you care about that is specific to your state, please contact me. I've turned on grants that were cut off. So please, if that happens, there's an appeal process, but you can pick up the phone and you can call me, and I would be more than happy to look at that. I never want to take away a grant that is actually helping Americans, helping victims, helping law enforcement, and we're looking at it on a case-by-case basis, and many of those are being appealed already, but you have my word, we will look at all of those, absolutely.
Thank you. And in terms of the other piece of the question, when the notices for information will go out, because the fiscal year obviously is, running out, and we are hearing from lots of entities that are waiting for those notices so they can apply for the grant funding.
Yeah, yes, Senator. The notice of funding is consistent with our priorities, and they're finalizing it right now. It will be going out very shortly.
Very shortly. All right. Thank you.
It'll be posted on a rolling basis, too, I believe.
Okay. If you could just keep us posted on that. And I would appreciate it, Madam Attorney General, if you could have your team respond to a letter that about 30 senators wrote to you on this topic of the prior fiscal year funds that were frozen.
I will make sure they look at that letter. I think we've received probably thousands of letters.
You've got lots of letters. But we really do need, in order to do our job, to get responses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Attorney General.
What you just watched may seem like a routine exchange about a whistleblower complaint, but if you really listen closely, it reveals something far more serious about integrity inside one of the most powerful institutions in the country, the Department of Justice. Because at the heart of this moment is a simple but critical question. What happens when a government lawyer believes they are being asked to cross a legal or ethical line? The whistleblower in question isn't some outsider. This is a 15-year veteran of the DOJ, someone who served across administrations, including under Donald Trump, and was reportedly recognized for his work. And according to his account, he was terminated after refusing to sign a legal brief that he believed was not supported by evidence or the law. Now, think about what that means. In the legal system, especially at the federal level, attorneys are not just advocates, they are officers of the court. That means they have a duty not only to represent their client, but to uphold the truth. You can argue aggressively, you can push your case, but you cannot knowingly present something false. That's not just unethical, it undermines the entire justice system. So when the Attorney General talks about zealous advocacy, the senator presses on something important, because zealous does not mean say whatever it takes to win. It means advocate strongly within the boundaries of the law and ethics. And to her credit, she does say that clearly. Advocacy must be honest and ethical. But here's where the tension really begins.
Instead of directly addressing the core allegation, whether this attorney was punished for refusing to do something improper, the response shifts to procedure and timing. It becomes about pending litigation, about the context of the complaint, about defending colleagues. And while those may be valid considerations legally, they don't fully answer the concern being raised. Because the concern is bigger than one case. The senator points out that this isn't happening in isolation. There are reports from other officials across departments who feel pressured to act in ways that they consider unethical. Now, whether every claim is true or not, the pattern itself is what raises alarms, because institutions like the DOJ depend on trust. Not just public trust, but internal trust. The trust that lawyers can do their jobs without being pushed to compromise their professional integrity. The trust that decisions are being made based on law, not pressure. The trust that if someone raises a concern, it will be taken seriously, not punished. And when that trust starts to erode, the consequences ripple outward. Cases become questionable, decisions become suspect, and public confidence in the justice system begins to weaken. Now, to understand why democratic oversight matters here, you have to look at what the senator is doing. He's not declaring guilt.
He's not jumping to conclusions. He's asking for clarity. He's drawing attention to a situation that deserves scrutiny and making sure it doesn't get buried under procedure or silence. That's how accountability works. Because without oversight, these kinds of allegations can be dismissed, delayed, or ignored. But when they're brought into the open, they have to be examined. They have to go through due process, and the truth has a chance to come out. Then the conversation shifts to funding, and that might seem like a separate issue, but it actually connects in an important way. We're talking about DOJ grants, funding that supports law enforcement training, victim services, and public safety programs. When those funds are cut or delayed, it's not abstract. It affects real people, communities, victims of crime, local agencies trying to do their jobs. And what the senator is highlighting is uncertainty. Grants being cut, funding notices delayed, organizations left waiting, in some cases running out of resources. Now, the Attorney General responds by saying adjustments are being made, that there's an appeal process, that offices can reach out. And that's important. But it also raises a larger question about consistency and planning. Because when funding decisions become unpredictable, it creates instability for the very systems that are supposed to protect people. So when you step back and look at this entire exchange, you start to see the bigger picture. On one side, questions about ethical pressure inside the justice system. On the other, questions about how resources are being managed. And tying it all together is the issue of trust. Trust in leadership, trust in process, and trust that decisions are being made in the public interest. That's what this is really about. Not just one whistleblower, not just one policy, but whether the institutions that are supposed to uphold the law are being protected or put under strain. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really at stake beyond the surface of this hearing, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with someone who needs to see the bigger picture. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep demanding accountability, because that's how democracy stays strong.